How are you doing? My name is Olivia and this is my YouTube channel Pumpkin Hollow Quilts. Today is Friday, February 2nd, 2024. Hope you guys had a wonderful end to your January. I felt like January lasted about 3 months. Usually March is the month that I feel like goes on forever, but for whatever reason, this year, January was very trying and challenging. The new year started off with all the hopefulness that a brand new year typically starts out with, and we got about a week and a half into the new year, and our barely 2-year-old dishwasher gave up the ghost. And apparently dishwashers are not meant to last more than 2 years, 3 years at the most, which to me is a load of BS. I think with the amount of money that you spend on those dishwashers, they should last at least 10. I think my dad, he has a dishwasher. I think it's the one that they brought over from the old house. I think it's still going strong 20 plus years later. Like, that's how they need to make appliances. Then a week and a half after that happened, the husband was putting in a new water filter in our refrigerator, and it was the wrong one, and so it blew out the water hose somewhere up in the refrigerator, so we had water everywhere. And so now we have to decide whether we want to find a repairman to come out and fix it or just live without it. And we were all sitting out in the other room, we were talking about it, and Allison says, "You know these things happen in threes, don't you? You better hope the third one's not your quilt machine." And I'm like, "Take it back." And 1 week to the day, so it was last Monday, I was quilting my own quilt. This week was supposed to be quilting week for me, so I was going to work on 2 of my own quilts, and then I had client quilts, and my hope was by the end of the week, all the quilts would be going back to their owners, and I would be all caught up. And I was about a third of the way in, long arming my quilt, and my machine just shut off, and I cannot get it to come back on. Don't know what happened. Very vexing and frustrating, and it's going in next week to get diagnosed, and I am praying it's not an expensive fix, because I cannot afford a new machine or a hefty repair bill. So through the entire month, there was that old saying, misery loves company. So I kept trying to have a positive spin on things, and so we would have one thing happen, and then we'd get a good bit of news. So for instance, I went in for my mammogram, and it came back all good, so no breast cancer, so that's awesome, great news. So it was like little bits of that, there'd be a good nice little bit of mail that would come, maybe a sweet card or good news from somewhere, or you would read something on social media, somebody's good news. So it was like a little bit, so with all of the bad or all of the sad came a little bit of happy. So it was, trying to balance, staying positive, not inviting misery. It would be very easy to, especially towards the end of the month. And the very last day of January ended on a super sour note. I got a phone call from my brother, and if he calls me after 5 o'clock, it's never good news. So he called me, and I knew my aunt was having some health issues, and she called my brother to let him know that she was going to be calling my grandma, because my grandma lives with my brother and his family, and she was going to be calling my grandma to let her know what her medical diagnosis was. And it turns out she has to have open heart surgery. So that is definitely very scary. And of course, constantly saying a prayer that, you know, everything will work out in the end and that she'll be healthy. And, you know, because she's had a very rough go the last couple of years. She just had neck surgery a month ago, the day after Christmas, because every time she looked up, she'd pass out. So it turned out it was some sort of a pinched nerve or something was going on in there. So she got that fixed. And prior to that, she'd had back surgery. She's got to have back surgery again. And my uncle's not in the best of health. And so they've just had a very trying couple of years. And so now this came up. And so, yeah, that's how our January ended. And, you know, just kind of trying to balance, you know, just trying to stay positive and all that. It's been very, very trying. So I would love if, you know, down in the comment section, you know, maybe you could leave a funny joke or some good news of your own, or a funny story, or something you just finished, or something you started, maybe a stitch along you're doing, maybe a new friend you've made. Just some uplifting comments that I can read so that I can keep channeling those positive vibes instead of sinking into the depths of vexation. I would really appreciate it. All right, so moving along to some fun stuff. Today's video, I actually have a whole lot of stuff I'm going to throw at you guys. It's been productive. I've done some shopping, not a whole lot, but I have done a little bit of shopping. I had a gift certificate, so I've done a bit of shopping. I've done some makes. I got some wonderful Happy Mail, and I also have a brand new quilt hanging up behind me. This is not the quilt that was supposed to be hanging here. I was actually working on the quilt that I had planned to hang here, and it's a third of the way done on my quilt machine, and I'm praying I don't have to unpick it because I did a very dense feather pattern. I was trying to practice a new motif, and they always tell you to practice a new motif on your own quilt. I was doing that. It's very dense, and I really don't want to have to unpick all those stitches, but I had to scramble a little bit because I like to change out my quilts every month. So since it's February, Valentine's Day, I thought I would hang up the red sampler quilt. I made this one several years ago. It was a quilt along with Lori Holt, and it was a whole lot of fun, and it's perfect for February. And I just feel like it plays so nicely with the trench bowl, with the snowmen. I like to mix snowmen with Valentine's Day because I don't really do a lot of like Valentine decorating. I usually just kind of keep it in one little area. And so I think it looks really, really great. But the red sampler quilt is the name of the quilt that's hanging up behind me. And it was such a fun quilt along that she did, I think in 2022. I went back on my Instagram to see when I first posted it, and also to find out what the name of the quilt was. And I think it was in 2022 that she did the quilt along, but a lot of fun. Love Lori Holt's quilt along. They're always a blast, and she is an amazing designer. All right, so we'll start off with a little bit of purchasing that I did. I had gotten a gift certificate to 123 Stitch for Christmas, and I purchased the Scarlet House Little Red Chair Sampler. And so I got the chart, and I got all the threads, and this piece of linen I got from Christine Hollis Hands Creates. It's called One More Reproduction by Be Stitch Me, I think. But the reason why I purchased this was because back in November, December, I had found a pedestal frame at a local antique shop, and I had been looking for one for a very long time. And I was able to find it and purchase it with some of my tip money that I had made at Bauman's in September and October. Because sometimes you find them and they are very expensive, but this one wasn't too bad. So I purchased it, and then the hunt for the perfect sampler began. And I'm in a group chat with a group of friends, and Yvette shared a picture of one of her sampler walls. And I mean, it was beautiful, but then I zeroed in on this one that was like kind of far over, and I asked her what it was. And so she took a close-up picture, and all the ladies kind of quickly did the math, and this sampler should fit perfectly in that frame. So I can't wait to begin this. I was actually supposed to start this one after I finished all my January assignments, but Ye Old Mocking Basket of Whips was having none of that. So I would like to start this one soon. Yvette says it stitches up really fast, so I think it is very beautiful. I can't wait. And I think it's going to be beautiful on this linen. I already kind of modeled it with the frame, and I think it's just going to fit in perfectly because the frame's kind of beat up a little bit, and I think it's just going to be perfect. So I can't wait to start working on that. And then by Stacy Nash Primitives, I picked up Jack-o'-lantern Sewing Pocket and Chatelaine. So I had watched, I think it was Katie So Tattered and Tina, Team Anger. I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing her last name fabulously, but it's Team ENGER on Instagram. And I think maybe Ginger Shoal was working on this. I know the three of them work on a lot of projects together, but I know I saw two of them working on this project in the fall, and I loved it. So I had it on my wish list on 123 Stitch, and when I got my gift certificate, I knew immediately I was going to get this. So I purchased the chart and called for linen, which I think is a 35 count Havana by Weeks Dye Works, and then the called for thread, which I believe is charcoal by Weeks Dye Works. So I had received an email earlier this month from Trelly, who is the Spanish stitcher on Instagram, and she released a handful of brand new samplers, and she very graciously sent those to me. These were all PDFs, which I love PDFs because it's instant and you can just print it off and start stitching on it. The first sampler she sent me is called Redbird Sampler, and I really love this one. I have, so the ones that I'm showing you today, most of them I just printed the cover picture, but this one I printed it off right away because I would love to stitch it. I just love that little red sampler. I think it would be so cool in a frame, tucked up on a shelf, and just so fun. I love it. The next is called FT Sampler and Strawberries Baskets. And I love all the colorways on all of these samplers. I think they're just so beautiful. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to butcher this magnificently, but I think it's La Mason sampler. And I love this one. I love the colors. I think it would be so perfect to stitch it this time of the year and kind of tuck it away in a, a winter display. So pretty. Next one is called the Blue Indiano House, and I'm pretty positive I mispronounced that awesomely. I watched Trelly stitch this one, and she showed a couple of sneak peeks there towards the end right before she released them on her Etsy shop, and I fell in love with this one. And also in the, when you purchase the PDF, she also sends information about this place, and there's a picture of the actual building, and so beautiful. I definitely know that this one needs to be in my stitching plans. It's just it's so beautiful. And then she also had a Valentine design that she recently released. It's called Honoring Love, and I think it is so cute. I love that Cupid. So pretty. So thank you so very much to Trelly for sending me those beautiful designs. And Trelly also has a Flosstube channel. It is called the Spanish Stitcher _ by Trelly, and I will scroll it here. I will also put the links to Trelly's Etsy shop as well as her Instagram down below in the description box. I hope you will go and check out Trelly. She has beautiful stitches. And I loved her first video that she did, and her designs are wonderful. So I did have a couple of new projects that I worked on over the past 2 weeks. As many of you guys know, I like to decorate my home in primitive decor, and I like to make little goods to display around my home, and I also do sell them in my Etsy shop. So these two things are brand new. I basically just got up the nerve to make them because they definitely are a little bit different. They involved a lot of different elements, and so they weren't things that I could just immediately finish and then have out on display. I mean, it took me several days to work on these. So the first one is called Primitive Folk Art Crow Heart Make Do, and it is by Rock River Stitches. And she does have an Etsy shop, and I'll put a link to her shop down below. She has a lot of wonderful primitive items that you can purchase the PDF charts for, and paper charts if you would like to make them for yourself. So I went ahead and I made one, and originally you're supposed to put him on like a spool, but I did not have one of those, but I did have some wood. So I had my husband cut me some wood blocks, and then I stained them. But definitely very different from, stepping outside my comfort zone, but he was a lot of fun to make. And I love that he has a little heart for Valentine's Day, and he's got this little bit of cheesecloth, which adds, just kind of that primitive flair. And I just love them. I think it turned out really, really good. It was my first one, so of course every single mistake I could possibly do was done on this one. I did make a handful of them, and I sold them in my shop earlier this week. And a few people have received them, and they've left great feedback. So that always makes me so happy to read that they love the crow and all the little goods, because they're just absolutely so much fun to make, and I love seeing them just go all over the world. It's just so fun. And my last to make is something that I purchased the pattern when it first came out because I really loved it. It is by Liberty Creek Primitives, and it is called Strawberry Make Do Pin Keep. So this one was another one where I kind of stepped outside my comfort zone, and I made 400 mistakes on it, but it's okay. And here it is. I think it turned out really good, mistakes and all, but I absolutely love it. And I do plan on making some of these for my Etsy shop, but the pattern is very easy to follow. If you like to make your own primitive goods to have around your home, this project is very fun. It's not complicated at all. Both directions on both of these patterns were great to follow. So I love it. And I do plan on making more of these, but so much fun. So after my last video, I was outside with Freddie late at night while he's doing his thing. And I got to thinking about my stitching and the mocking basket of whips, and even my quilting projects and those in progress, those I want to start. And I got to thinking about everything, and I decided that I wanted to finish Jack because I needed a win, and also because I'm struggling on my Autumn on Lazy Bear Mountain. I didn't bring it to show today because I didn't work on it at all in January. But I've been working on Autumn on Lazy Bear Mountain with a group of friends. It's a restart for me, and I'm not really enjoying working on it. I have moments when I do, but I don't know. So I needed to sort of challenge myself to kind of fall back, challenge myself in a way that would have me working on it on dedicated days, so that way as I progress, I will fall in love with it, because I know I will. Whenever I see it finished on Instagram, Facebook, wherever, it's beautiful. I love it. I want it on my wall. But I'm struggling with my own. So I thought if I finished Jack, because Jack had dedicated the 13th and the 31st of every month, or the last day of the month, he had those dedicated days. And I thought that's exactly what my Autumn on Lazy Bear Mountain needs. It needs a dedicated day each month where it's day for me to work on it. And so I went ahead. I didn't have a lot left on Jack, so it took me, I think, 3, maybe 4 evenings, and I had it done. So here is Jack's Bash by Plum Street So I stitched this with Katie of So Tattered and so many of you guys. And even though I finished mine, I promise I will be there to celebrate your jack finishes and to root you on as you stitch along. But here it is. I love it. So I stitched Jack's Bash on a piece of 36 count a grandma slip by XJUDesigns, and I did use the called for threads, and I stitched it 1/2. I am so happy to have Jack finished. I love that he was the first finish of the new year. So much fun to work on. I love all of the colors. I love how it turned out on this linen. I cannot wait to find a frame. Trying to decide because I went up to the thrift store and they didn't have any frames this time. And so I need to go a little bit more frequently and see if they get frames, but I'm looking for something very specific. I think the frame needs to have some sort of design to it. So it could be that I might order something online. But cannot wait to get it in a frame. I'm so happy that I will have it on my wall this autumn. Loved working on this so much. So fun. Progress. Last night, being February 1st, I started back on Elizabeth Furniss 1836 by Hands Across the Sea Samplers. So I, without realizing it, completed this month's assignment last month, and that assignment is to fill in the bottom story the bottom story of the house, to fill it all in. So I thought, since I had already done that, I would jump up to the top of the sampler and begin personalizing it. And I am in the process of working on that personalization because I am stitching the sampler for my paternal great grandparents. And I thought it would go a little bit quicker last night. I sat down after dinner and I kind of started charting it out. I didn't get it done, but I had this loaded up to work on, so I decided to work on the second story. And then once I get the personalizing done, then I will jump up and work on that, and then come back to the house in March. So hopefully my friends won't kill me. So here she is. Last night I worked on the area around the second floor first window. And depending on how much time I have tonight will determine if I continue outlining. I think that's what I'm going to do, is just kind of outline things. But my plan this month is to put in all the personalizing. So I love her. I cannot wait to get her done. There's a big part of me that just wants to keep going until she's done. But I have a feeling that my friends would board a plane and show up at my house. But I love working on her. She's so much fun and such a joy to stitch. I just love her. Love her, love her. So not a tremendous amount of progress because I only just worked on that window last night. I had about an hour stitching, so I didn't get a whole lot done, but she is a joy to work on. If you have her in your whip basket, or if you're on the fence about purchasing her, I can tell you that you will love working on her. I am stitching Elizabeth Furniss on a piece of 40 count bee's knees by Seraphim Fabrics, and I am stitching using DMC threads, and I'm stitching it 1/2. So my next project I worked on was Plum Street Samplers Live on Little. So I think I showed this one in my last video, talked a little bit about a mistake I made and some fudging I would have to do. And that Friday I had a Zoom meetup with a group of friends, and I decided to work on Live on Little. This is how far I got. So I think I had just finished the church right before my last video. So everything below the church I stitched. So I do have to do a fair bit of fudging, but I think it's going to be okay. I don't really think it's just, I wrote myself a note. I kind of know what I need to do. I made sure I outlined it. I outlined the ship so that way I knew the sailboat, so that way I knew where it was going to be. I think it's going to be okay. Things just have to be a little mush. Like the house, there's a big giant house on here. I think it's going to be fine. The only thing I messed up on was the church. It's just 2 stitches too low. So everything on that side is 2 stitches too low, but everything around it is in the correct position. So I just need to kind of fudge a few things. I think it's going to be fine. I don't think you're going to notice it. There's so much that goes on with this that I think it'll be fine. She says with her fingers crossed. So I am stitching Live on Little on a piece of 36 count American Chestnut by R&R Reproductions, and I am using the called for thread, stitching it 1/2. So my goal with this is to get it finished this summer. So I got a long ways to go. There's a lot of stitching left, but it's a lot of fun to work on. I really like this one. It's beautiful. I've seen a couple people finish it. It's just beautiful. So I love this one. And it'll be a great companion to Liberty's Welcome, which is on my wall in the other room. After I finished working on Live on Little, I started back on Sarah's Stewart Hardman by Needlework Press. I started this one on my birthday in November, and I'm stitching it with my friend Yvette. Also, Celeste Create is stitching it. She had started hers on her birthday, which was a few months before mine. She's a fair bit ahead and it looks amazing. So the motif that I assigned for January was this bird here above the house and then a couple of the border flowers. And in my last video, I talked about Sarah a little bit and how I wanted to find a treadle sewing machine motif that I could stitch somewhere on the sampler because I'm stitching this for my maternal great-great-grandmother Martha, and I have her treadle sewing machine. So I thought it would be a really neat tribute to find a place on the sampler to stitch that motif. And thank you so very much for all of your great recommendations. There's a couple that I'm going to look into because I will be stitching it over one. So I'm just going to kind of find a good spot to put it and just kind of like stitch a little treadle sewing machine just kind of somewhere on the sampler. So thank you for all of your great ideas. I really, really appreciate it. Definitely a lot to consider. So thank you. And here is my progress. So I am stitching Sarah on a piece of 36 count Vintage Buttercream by Lakeside Linens, and I'm stitching it with the called for, there's 2 different thread choices. I am not stitching it with the silks, but I am stitching it with the over dyed conversion that is listed on the chart, which is Classic Colorworks, and I'm stitching it 1/2. I love it. Loved working on that bird. I wasn't sure about the bird because in person it's a little bit more green than it's showing up in the viewfinder. So I wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out, but once I got it stitched, I really liked it. So such a beautiful sampler. So I need to figure out what I will be stitching this month, where I want to go, because somehow you know, we started here and then I went straight down, and I don't know that I want to stitch the house because that's a humongous motif, so I'm guessing I'm gonna have to go this way. So I need to figure that out, but such a fun stitch. I love working on her. She is just so beautiful. And then I worked on my January assignment on casting a spell. This month I assigned 2 blocks. It was this one and one of these stars. So I believe it was 5 and 7. Yes, so blocks 5 and 7 were what the assignments were. It went really, really quick. I think I did it in 2 evenings. So it was those 2 blocks there. So it's coming along beautifully. I think there's 3 blocks that remain, and then this will be complete. So fun. So I'm stitching Casting a Spell on a piece of 30 count gray by Weeks Dye Works, and I am using a called for threads, and I'm praying that I have enough thread. I'm almost out of pumpkin pie, and I think I'm only going to need it for a couple of little motifs. So I'm hoping that's true, because if I don't have to buy any more thread for this, I'll be happy. So I'm praying, but it eats up a ton of thread because you stitch it 2/2. And it just eats thread like crazy. So I'm hoping that I have enough to keep going. I know pumpkin pie is running low. And I'm also hoping that if I do run out, I have some. But so fun. I'm so glad to be stitching this one. So I'm stitching this with Yvette. We've had some sort of a fall stitch going for, I want to say 3 years now. There's just always some sort of a fall Halloween project that we've had going on, and it's been so much fun. Once I had completed all of my assignments for the month, I was going to start something new. I was going to start the red chair sampler, but the mocking basket of whips was not an approval of that. And the more I thought about it, the guiltier I felt. So instead, I spun the wheel of whips, and it landed on Christmas in My Heart, 1843 by Samplers Not Forgotten. So I had started this back in December, right before Christmas. I love this one. I had a blast working on it back in December. All of this, it's so wonderful. I love it. I love the base of poinsettias. I just love it. This is like the perfect, like vintagey Christmas sampler. I just love it. So I picked it back up again. I decided to work on the house. I thought maybe I could get the house completed by the end of January, but there is a heck ton of stitches in that house. So I think if it all works out, because February is kind of a short month, but if it works out, when I finish all of my February assignments, I'm going to pick this up and work on it again, because I would really like to get that house finished. So I am stitching Christmas in My Heart on a piece of 40 count vintage Meadow Rue by Lakeside Linens, and I'm stitching it with the called for threads, 1/2. I love it. Cannot wait to get back to it. And I really love this linen so much. I wish it was easier to find, because I would probably stitch everything in this color. It's so pretty. So pretty. Can't wait to get back to that. The goal for this one is to get it finished by Christmas. And I think that once I get the house done, I mean, that's a pretty good bit of the chart. So I think once I get that done, the rest will just be a breeze. So I think that's what I'm trying to set myself up to do that. I'm trying to finish the house so that way when I get back to it, it's just trees, words, and the rest of the vine. So I did get a little bit of Happy Mail, and these arrived on Monday, about an hour after my quilt machine broke. So I was in the dumps, and these arrived, and it really it made a little ray of sunshine in my day. So Jamie, she actually stitched something for me last year or the year before. It was George Decorates for Martha. It's an autumn theme, so it's got Mount Vernon, it's got George Washington and his wife Martha, and then it has pumpkins that he's decorating around Mount Vernon. And she had stitched that for me, and I have it framed, and it's hanging up in the other room. I love it. Well, she sent me an envelope, and this is the card. So this one was for my birthday and Christmas, and she stitched this for me. So this is a Mount Vernon Christmas, I think. Christmas at Mount Vernon by Plum Street. And it is so absolutely adorable. So it's got Mount Vernon, it's got a snowman on the house with an American flag, and she stitched this for me. She said she had bought it as a kit, and she told me that she held on to it until after Christmas, when the mail kind of got all sorted, which I totally understood, because I had several things go missing during Christmas. It eventually made it to its destination, but there were definitely some days where I wish I wouldn't have sent it, but I totally understood. And it was a good thing she did because it arrived on a day when I really needed some happiness. So she told me that I can either finish it as a pillow small, so she sent the finishing for it, or maybe I could frame it. And I'm trying to decide because, you know, my the trench bowl definitely needs some seasonal smalls, especially for like Christmas and wintertime. But also, this would be so amazing as a little framed finish that I could just kind of tuck here and there. So it's gonna be a tough decision. But I absolutely love it. It was so kind of her to stitch this for me. I just love it. So thank you so very much, Jamie. I've already talked to her and thanked her, but thank you, Jamie. I cannot wait to get this finished and have it somewhere around the house. The next little bit of Happy Mail came from Leanne, and she sent me this wonderful card and such a sweet note inside. She sent me this beautiful Jim Shore sewing angel. I collect Jim Shore figurines. I have various ones for like quilting, sewing, seasonal ones, Santas, all sorts of fun ones. Halloween, I have a lot of Halloween Jim Shore, and I collect these. I love them. And I absolutely love this sweet sewing angel. I don't know that I'm going to hang it on my tree. I might, but I usually will tuck these, oh, you know, just kind of like, you know, I might put them in here or up here or in the other room. I kind of move them around all the time, but I love it. Love Jim Shore. He also sent me this amazing ceramic pumpkin that I absolutely love. It's so unique. I love collecting unique pumpkins. I display some of them year round. So I love this. I've never seen one like this. So even my husband liked it. I love it. She also included 2 cross-stitch charts. The first one is Autumn Quaker by Primrose Cottage. Definitely think I need to stitch this. I've been seeing the different seasonal autumn Quakers on Instagram, and they're all just super cool. So I definitely think I need to stitch this one. And then by Brenda Gervais, Madame Cottontail. And I love Brenda Gervais. Love, love, love. So thank you so very much, Leanne. It was so kind of you to send those to me. And then the last little bit of Happy Mail came from Shelly. She sent me this beautiful card and a sweet note inside. She sent me the quilt kit for this quilt. It's called Heritage, and it was designed by Sewin' Wild Oaks. The fabric line is Macy's Journal by Judy Rothermel. It's a beautiful fabric line, so scrumptious. This is what it looks like. Oh, so beautiful. I mean, look at those gorgeous colors. Definitely could easily be a Christmas quilt, but chances are it will be up year round once I get it complete. I love this fabric line. I mean, you know me, I love anything Judy Rothermel, so excited to get that. Can't wait to start it at some point. The Heritage quilt did not travel alone. She also sent me by Primitive Gatherings The Magic of Christmas. So I've seen this one in person. It was at a quilt show that I had went to, and somebody had it finished and quilted, and it was hanging up for display, and it was gorgeous. And here is the fabric. So it's all beautiful reds and whites. So gorgeous. Can't wait to start it. There's also some extra fabric. And this one is a line by Minnick and Simpson. So beautiful. I can't wait to begin working on both of those. Such a beautiful quilt, so fun. Thank you so very much, Shelly, for sending those my way. I can't wait to begin working on them and, you know, just see them come to life. I love them. So thank you so very much. I did receive a package from the Fat Quarter Shop of items that are available now on the Fat Quarter Shop's website, and I will put a link to their website down below. The first one is Be In My Bonnet Stitch Card Set S. I don't have my glasses on. It's either an S or an 8, but winter themed. Super cute. Chicken Club Henrietta. This is 12 of 12. So cute. Love Mini Simply Signs. Such a fun one for Valentine's Day. Then we have January Snowman. This is a series called Shelf Life, and this is number 1 of 12. So cute. Jolly Snowman by It's So Emma. Hometown Neighborhood Tea House by Lori Holt, Be In My Bonnet. Very pretty. A quilt called Flirty by Kim Deal. Fa La La La, Fa La La La, Simply Signs pattern number 6. Cute. Stackables December by It's So Emma. Very fun. And a quilt by Kim Deal called Sun Drops and Starflowers, which I am super tempted to do. So awesome. So thank you so very much to the Fat Quarter Shop for sending those items my way. And again, I will put a link to the Fat Quarter Shop's website down below. Okay, quilting. So here's the deal. I had planned to quilt 2 of my quilt tops and have them to share and show in today's video. The first one was going to be hanging up behind me, and it's still loaded onto the quilt bars. I have to take it off and pray I don't have to unpick all those stitches because, again, it was a very dense pattern. I was trying out feathers. And then I also had another quilt that I was going to get quilted and then have it to show in today's video. So naturally I'm scrambling because I haven't done any quilting. I didn't do any last week. I was working on primitive goods for the shop, and this week was going to be quilting week, and everything fell apart. So I've already talked about the red sampler quilt behind me, so I thought maybe I would talk about some of my plans that I do plan on doing. Even though my quilt machine, I'm not sure what's going to happen with it, I still do plan on making quilt tops. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that I had sort of had, I've been thinking about everything that I have going, my projects that I have going, both stitching and quilting. I wanted to see progress-wise, finishes-wise, just to get some of these things finished and, be able to enjoy them instead of having them in the mocking basket of whip or out in the pit of despair. So I originally was going to start a different quilt, but the more I got to thinking about, the more I thought I needed to get this one completed, because out of all the quilts, this one has already been started. I didn't bring the blocks to show you today. I'll do that in my next video. But there are 6 months worth of blocks that have been done. This quilt kit came to me from a friend, so I'm basically picking up where she left off. And the quilt is called Freedom Bound. It was designed by Denise Lipscomb, and she is Common Threads Quilting. And this is what it looks like. So I pulled the next 2 blocks. So I have month 7 and month 8. And each one of these, you just have to make one. And they finish unfinished at 12.5 inches square. So this is number 7. And here is the fabrics. I love them. Scrumptious. And month 8. So pretty. Oh gosh, I love all these fabrics. So over the next 2 weeks, I do plan on working on both of these blocks and have them finished to show in my next video. I also do plan on working on my, what's it called? Something miniatures Mastering Miniatures, that's what it was called. It was a block of the month that was put on by Homestead Hearth. The fabric is by Judy Rothermel. It's a beautiful quilt. After I talked about it, I can't remember if it was in my last video or the video before, Carol Crago and Yvette both sent me photos of their completed Mastering Miniatures quilts, and they are spectacular. So I cannot wait to have mine done. It's a beautiful, beautiful quilt. So the plan is to get that one started too and have that to show you in my next video. I didn't bring it. The pit of despair is a massive mess right now because I'm in the middle of purging it and I feel like I just made it angry and somehow there's more stuff out there. So it's out there. I had a little bit of heart palpitations when I went out and discovered just how many quilt kits that I have. And that is also why I decided not to like jump in and do any quilt-alongs or anything like that, because I realized I have a stack of quilts out in the pit of despair that I need to start working on. So that's why I started with Freedom Bound. I did do a little purchasing on Facebook. I belong to a group that it's kind of a destashing page for Civil War reproduction, and I just happened to be on there. There was a gal who was selling half-yard bundles of Civil War reproduction fabric, so I purchased it. I need to work on my stash of background fabrics. I have a lot of cream, but I don't have a lot of like white Civil War reproduction background fabric. So when I saw that she had these for sale, it was a great price, half-yard cuts. I jumped on it immediately, and so that came. So the last thing that I want to talk about today is another quilt that I would like to start on. This one I talked about back in September. I think I might have talked about it one other time in the fall of the year. The time has come to now work on it. So I have been wanting to make a hand applique quilt. I've done different hand applique. I've done two fabric applique, which is where you take two pieces of fabric. The top fabric, you trace your design out, and then as you're needle turning, you're cutting out the background, or you're cutting out the top fabric to reveal the background fabric behind. So I've done that. I've also done Lori Holt's So Simple Shapes applique, but I wanted to try like hand applique, where you're, where it's more of the traditional, if that makes sense. So when I was at the state fair, I saw the Raven quilt, fell in love with it, bought it immediately. The pattern from 123 Stitch, talked about it in my September video, and Celeste of Celeste Creates and Olivia B both said they would love to stitch along with me as I worked on this quilt. So both Celeste and Olivia B have finished their first quilt blocks. They are magnificent, and I cannot wait to also have my first block finished. So the holdup for me has been background fabric. Now I am going to do the applique method of appliquing my pieces. Olivia B does a great tutorial showing the tools that you use, and she also sells them in her Etsy shop, Hillside Rookery. So this is what two of the tools do. So you mainly use these when you're doing it's kind of hard to explain. You definitely should go check out her Olivia B's tutorial. She does several of them, great tutorials. I've already watched them twice and I will watch them again when I sit down to start, but you use these tools quite a bit. Also so this is fusible web, and you use this on the back side of your pieces. Gotta have some applique scissors and the glue stick with some backups. So those are the tools that you need to work with your applique shapes, and I'm very excited to try them out. And again, I'll be watching Olivia B's tutorial again. This is what the quilt looks like. So as soon as those background fabrics come, I am going to start this one, and I can't wait. I've just been dying to work on this one and to do applique, because a lot of the quilt books that I have applique patterns in them that I would just love to work on. Eventually, I would love to do a Baltimore album quilt. That is like my holy grail. I have loved them since I first started quilting, and I've seen them, you know, quilt shows and all sorts of places, and I love them. And that's the only, so I've done a variety of all sorts of complicated quilts. And that is one, the Baltimore album quilt, that is one that I need to do before I die. So if you're interested in the applique tools, definitely go check out Olivia B's tutorials. She also carries the tools in her Etsy shop, Hillside Rookery. So she has like where you can get like the full kit of tools, but then she also has another offering where it's just the tools that she uses. And those are the same tools that she uses in her tutorials. So definitely go check it out if you're interested, if you're curious about doing applique. I'm excited. I can't wait to get started. Just gotta wait for those background fabrics to eventually make their way to me. I'm getting a little perturbed. Anyway, so lots of fun, and I will put a link to Olivia B's tutorials and a link to her Etsy shop down below. If you're at all interested, definitely go check it out. Well, my friends, I think that brings me to the end of today's video. I feel like there was definitely a lot of stuff that I threw out at you guys. And as always, I will make sure that the majority of it is listed down below in the description box if you're at all interested. If you've stuck around for this length of time, I do greatly appreciate it. And if you're brand new to the channel, I hope you will consider hitting the subscribe button. I do upload about every 2 weeks. There's just that one time that I didn't. But the plan for me will be to be back in 2 weeks. If you would like to see what I'm up to in between my videos, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm Pumpkin Hollow Quilts, or I do have a Facebook page called Pumpkin Hollow Quilting, and I will put a link to both of those places down below. Trying to think if I have forgotten anything. I don't think so. So I will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.